Hello programmers, and welcome back to Lesson 6 in our series of learning CircuitPython on the Circuit Playground Express Bluefruit Edition. And in this lesson we're going to learn about pushing buttons. We're specifically going to use the digitalio library. We're going to set up a button, we're going to respond to a press, and we're going to learn a bit about the if statement. So let's get at it. The first thing that we need to do if we want to detect if buttons are pressed is we need to import a new library. This library is called digitalio, all one word, all lowercase. And we have to do this in the same way that we had to import NeoPixel in order to work with our lights, or we imported time in order to access the sleep command. And in the way that NeoPixel handled all of the lights, digitalio handles any input or output that's going into the Circuit Playground Express. Now a button press, that's considered to be an input. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the button. Now, in the way that we referred to our NeoPixel library, and there was this command .neopixel, which allowed us to create a new object, which pointed to the lights on the board that are called NeoPixels, and said there were 10 of them. Well, there's a similar command in the digitalio library. This is .digitalinOut, and what we pass in here is just in the same way that board.neopixel knew about all of the lights, board.button A, spelled in all capital letters with an underscore in here, knows that this is button A, this one that I'm pointing to right here on the CPX. So we could name this anything we wanted to, but in the way that Pixels was a pretty good name, button underscore A is a pretty good name for the button that we're setting up. Now we're going to need one more line if we're going to detect if our button is being depressed, and that's this line that you see right here. Now it's kind of a big line and there are a lot of different pieces to it. If you ever set up any buttons, just copy the lines that you see here and your buttons will be good to go. Now if you've got these lines in your code, the next thing we want to do is we want to detect if a button is pressed. So we can just say if button A dot value, and that dot value is going to be either true or false. Now this is how if statements work. You see how there's a colon at the end, just like there was at the end of while true or at the end of our for loops? Well, if the if condition is true, which in this case means if button A is being pressed down, then it's going to execute any of the statements that are indented after this colon here. If it's not being pressed, we're going to skip over any of the indented statements. If button A is being pressed, then we're going to light up all of our pixels as red. So let's hop over to our code. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to import digitalio. Next, we're going to create a button A. So in the same way we could have named Pixels anything, but Pixels is a good name. We'll call this button A, and we're going to refer to our digitalio library. We're going to call digitalinout, and then inside here what we say is board dot, and this is going to be button A. And the board library knows exactly where that button is. Now that we've got button A created, what we're going to do is we're going to say button A dot switch to input, which means we're expecting the button to be pressed. Say pull equals digitalio dot capital pull dot all capital down. Now again, Python's going to be picky about capitalization and spelling, so I would just copy and paste these once you know that these lines are working. Now next up, let's change what we've got in our while true loop down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if button A dot value, and in a colon, so it's going to be either true or false. And if it's true, what we want to do is, well, in this case, we'll just say pixels dot fill, and then inside, why don't we just say red? Let's give this a shot. So I'll click on save, and if we click on button A here, you can see everything turns in red. Now once it's red, it stays red. So as your challenge, why don't you set up button B, and then when you press button B, turn all the lights blue. And here's button B just on the opposite side. So super easy to set this up. Pause, give it a try, and then unpause when you're ready to compare. Let's head over to move. If we did these two things for button A, let's go ahead and set up a button B similarly. We'll call this button B, so I'll just copy these two lines and replace the A with a B. And once I've done this, I've set up my button B. Now with button B set up, I'm going to go down to my while true loop. I'm going to copy these two lines that I used for button A. I'm going to paste them below so my while true loop also has a check for button B. I'm going to change the A to a B. I'm going to change the pixel filling to blue, and now we're ready to try this out. Let's see how things look when we click on B. They're blue. Click on A, they're red. Click on B, they're blue. A, they're red, B, they're blue, A, they're red. Wonderful. So now we know how to use digitalio to handle buttons. We've also had an introduction to the if statement. Good work. Keep at it.